the gift of radical acceptance is that it opens us up to creativity and to flexibility, right? Those are dynamic ideas. Welcome to This Whole Life, a podcast for all of us seeking sanity and sanctity and a place to find joy and meaning through the integration of faith and mental health. I'm Kenna Millay, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm with my husband, Pat Millay, a Catholic speaker, musician, and leader. We invite you to our kitchen table. Okay, not literally, but you're definitely invited into the conversations that we seem to keep having once the kids have scattered off to play and we're left doing the dishes. We're excited to share this podcast for educational purposes. It is not intended as therapy or as a substitute for mental health care. So let's get talking about this whole life.
Now, I'm not gonna stand here with my friends down and out.
Welcome back to This Whole Life, everyone. It is so good to be with you again.
Woo!
Good to be with you, my darling one. Good to be in this guest room full of presents that need to be wrapped and
surrounded by jobs
that need to be done. That's not distracting at all.
Sitting in the midst of your anxiety.
Welcome
so
to our recording
terrific.
studio. But really, welcome back. Welcome to episode 36 of This Whole Life, where we are seeking sanity and sanctity. And my gosh, we're even doing it in the midst of Advent and like all that this holds for us. So it is good to be with you again, my darling, especially after these last couple episodes that have been, they have been big and impactful and have really allowed us to feel even more connected to the listening community.
Yep.
It has been awesome to receive the feedback. Not awesome to know that so many understand the suffering that, we've walked with as well, but just to, I don't know, like be together in this fight, like fighting this good fight. So thank you. Thank you for listening. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, you should probably pause and go check out episodes 34 and 35.
They are terrific.
This one will still be here for you. Yeah, just, one small thing is that a lot of folks have said, how can we support This Whole Life podcast? This is an awesome ministry. It's been really enriching to my faith life. And honestly, we've talked about it and we love the podcast because it is free. Like therapy is not free, but coming to This Whole Life can be free. I guess you have to have a phone or device or something, but
True.
But instead of money, we would ask for prayer. And I don't mean that in like some cliche, like I'm Christian and that's what I'm supposed to say kind of way.
Yeah.
But like in this real
have nice feelings for us.
Yeah,
No.
But like, especially after episodes 34 and 35, like just the awareness of like how much we need like the Holy Spirit to inspire us and God to protect us and our patron saints to pray for us. And so I mean that sincerely, like the gift that we would love is just when you think of it, to offer a prayer for our family's protection, for our marriage's protection, and just for the flourishing of this ministry. So
yes, please.
That's all I got there.
And that's Kenna's opinion. My Venmo will be in the show notes and in the description at the bottom of the episode. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No, it's not. I just want your prayers just like Kenna does.
Highs and hearts. That's usually what we do at this point, right? I'm not usually in the driver's seat. That was like a weird intro. That's not our usual.
Welcome to This Whole Life, Kenna, right?
Do you want to go first?
I think I went first last time. Why don't you go first and then I'll follow up. Okay.
Well, I would say that my current hard, I have a few things I could think about. I could rant about the busyness of this season, but I don't know. That seems old. I would say, yes, that I just started with a new therapist and, it's been a good reminder. She's lovely, by the way. If any of you know my new therapist, she's great. My previous therapist had to take a medical leave. And so, we parted on great terms, but she's not available to me anymore. And so when I knew that I needed to go back and process, more stuff, this new person was introduced to me, and it's just hard. Like, it's just hard telling your story again. And like, it's hard to, there's so much there. I mean,
feel
I'm
like starting over.
40 something years old.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like dating again. Like,
Yeah.
after a very long time of not dating again.
Right.
And somebody like doesn't know you. And
Well, I
also
have 3 younger siblings.
right. And you're there to like ask for really substantive help and support. And so it's important for them to understand where your context and your history. So anyway, so it just is a hard, and it also is really good. I remember in grad school, they would say to us, like, be in therapy because you need to remember when you're a clinician, you need to remember what it's like to be in that other chair and to remember the vulnerability and to remember just the risk that it is to like, divulge yourself, self-disclose and just hope that this stranger, I mean, we're 3 sessions in, she's like literally stranger to me, that she's going to receive me and receive me well and do well with what I offer her. So that is my hard lately. It's just like, oh, I'm tired and yet it needs to be done. So that's my hard. My high is, and this one kind of surprises me and delights me. Maybe that's why it's my high, but we have a teenager in the house, ladies and gentlemen.
Ooh.
We have a teenager. Our oldest is 13. I'm also realizing that it means that like I am old enough and presumably wise enough and mature enough to be the mother of a teenager.
You know everything you need to know to have a teenager now. Yep.
It's just easy breezy from here, I'm pretty sure. But it's so fun. Like, I mean, you know, in a sense, there's like this imaginary line that she supposedly crossed at 1:53 on November 28th.
Yeah, right.
But really, like the conversations have just been deeper, and I'm finding myself stepping back more. Dare I say, practicing differentiation and boundaries, and being able to just like delight in who she is, and she's like really awesome. And like, believe you me, there's a lot of eye rolling some days and a lot of like stank eyes, but still. By and large, just so lovely and just so grateful to have her as like the head of our cub pack.
Yep.
So that is my high.
Yep.
That's my high lately.
Yep.
You. What's going on with you?
I would agree. Actually, my high is very similar. We just had Thanksgiving with my side of the family down in the glorious state of Iowa. For those of you who have never been or who have only driven through it,
is that the one by Wyoming,
or flown above it? Get out of my face! It's the potato one, yeah. No, it's one of the ones in the middle with a lot of vowels. All right, just leave us alone. It was great and wonderful, and one of the things that I realized during Thanksgiving weekend was kind of like that same turning the page in a couple different ways of like the shift in the season of our parenting journey. You know, we have our younger kids are now officially all out of diapers, pretty much, period. You know, we changed diapers for 13 years straight, basically 12 years in a row, something like that. So they're out of diapers. We went out of the house to like an event and didn't have to bring a stroller for the first time.
No one
in
napped?
Like 12 years again. No one napped. Right. So we're turning the page on the younger end of like kids that are a little more self-sufficient and a little bit less dependent on like bodily functions for us, things like that. And on the top end, our older 2 kids are old enough now to start staying up a little bit later with the adults and just like dipping their toe in the adult conversation pool, you know? And it was really fun to have them involved in some of the funny, like goofy adult talk after the little kids go to bed. And they thought it was just the best. And I'm the oldest cousin pretty much on both sides of my extended family. So I definitely remember those ages of like being in the adult conversation. And I remember literally having almost no idea what people were talking about 80% of the time. It just, they were using names and jokes and just all kinds of like adult type of conversation and goofy sarcasm and stuff that like did not register with me as a early teenager. So it was just really fun having them involved and having, like you said, deeper conversations with them over the past few months. It's been a lot of fun. So I have claimed and hoped for years that I am built for teenagers, not for toddlers. And there's a minor chance that we're coming into my wheelhouse right about now.
You're just getting warmed up? Is that what you're telling me?
Oh, let's all hope that, because if it gets worse from here, everyone's in bad shape, starting with our children.
God is good.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So all kinds of goodness. The hard is that you, my beautiful and very wise now 41-year-old bride, had the great opportunity to go through your first mammogram a few weeks ago. You know you've arrived when you
Did
got
you know
to
we
that
were going to talk about
stage.
this on the podcast today, guys?
Surprise.
What is the title of this pod?
And it was kind of a tricky week or so because you had to go back for like a follow-up appointment because there was something that showed up on the mammogram that was like irregular, and they wanted to rule out cancer and just see what was going on in there, and the good news and the really great blessing is that everything is totally fine. They found some totally normal things that are not tumors, and it's like, see you next year for your next mammogram type situation, But between the initial mammogram and the follow-up, there was definitely that fear starting to set in for me and for you a little bit too, of like, this could be really bad and we have no idea. And just that very first inkling that comes with getting a little bit older, of like being reminded of our mortality
Yes.
much more frequently than when I was like 17 years old, and just having to like process all of the logistical, practical side of that, like making sure that we are set up with our family for the day comes that you and I pass away, and all the feelings that are associated with it in the meantime, whether we die tomorrow or in 50 years, and also just a lot of like gratitude and a lot of intercessory prayer as well for the folks that don't get good responses and good prognoses to those kinds of appointments, just if I was feeling scared and anxious, I can't imagine what it's like for somebody to get the call about a malignant tumor or something like that. So there are people all over the world that get that kind of a call every day. So definitely ongoing love and prayers for people like that. Because even just like in it felt like a 5-minute glimpse of how difficult it was. I mean, that's just like a shred of what people are going through on a daily basis sometimes,
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Just that sense of solidarity of how vulnerable we are and how not in control of such big, important things we are. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Right. Exactly.
Absolutely. Which is honestly maybe a really good intro to our topic today.
Yeah. What are we talking about here?
Which is radical acceptance. And I know someone said something the other day, and they were like, you use that term all the time. And I was like, I do. And I don't know if I've ever actually explained what I mean when I say that, just sprinkled into episodes. But we decided that today, especially at this, if you're listening to this in real time of when this episode is published, it's around the holiday time.
Or exactly 1 year from real time, either way.
Yes, this works. But this is a time of year when radical acceptance is probably something that we are all being given an opportunity to practice on the daily. And maybe we're doing it in certain ways, and it's an awareness of like, oh, that's what that is. And we can expound upon it and increase our use of this skill. And there may be areas of life where we really are being called forward to live more in reality in radical acceptance. So that's what we're talking about tonight, my love.
Exciting. All right.
Welcome to
Great.
the show.
So I think before we get into the important stuff, I think we need to just be goofy for a second, because we're coming out of a couple episodes that were really beautiful, super significant, massively important, but also like the conversation, the topic could be a little bit heavy and a little bit kind of like even burdensome at times for some folks. Radical acceptance is way more of a hopeful, joyful conversation, but I feel like it's just time to have a little bit of fun.
Okay.
Call me a former
All right,
youth minister.
Ringmaster.
I know, it's the way it goes. So here's the way it's going to work.
Haven't had an icebreaker in a while. Okay.
We're going to do a little bit of a lightning round type situation like we did a few episodes ago with Vonda. Okay. The lightning round is this. I'm going to just give you a noun, person, place, thing, idea, something like that. And all you have to do, 30 seconds, you have to tell me your full and complete opinion about that thing or person or idea or whatever. Okay.
Yes.
And you have to be totally honest. Okay. If you like it, you got to tell us.
Okay.
Even if it's a little bit embarrassing. If you don't like it, you got to be real about it. Okay. And you, as a listener, can decide whether or not you think you could be friends with Kenna or I after we do this.
This is like lobbyist meets charades. Like it's like a weird. Okay.
Really what it is, it's my life, because I have very strong opinions about totally meaningless things. And this is your favorite thing about me.
But does this go both ways? Wait, am I
Yep. So we're going to alternate. Okay. So you and I will take turns. I'll give you an item, you give me a 30-second opinion, and then you turn right back around, give me an item or a thing or a person or whatever, and I'll do the same.
Place,
okay?
Thing. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
You ready? Here we go.
I'm a little nervous.
Number
you have a timer and everything?
1. I do not have a timer like I did with Vonda. No, we're just going to be around 30 seconds. We'll be loosey-goosey, okay?
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
Item number 1. Bread bowls.
Oh, gross. So soggy. Oh my goodness. Also so much bread. Like give me more of the soup. Give me more of the protein, the vegetables, the warm goodness that's meant to be soupy and soft. Don't give me bread that's meant to be like fresh and crunchy and bouncy. And now it's like soggy and gross and heavy and no bread bowls.
No situation, no soup that goes well with a bread bowl. Nothing.
No, bread on the side. But
you know it's crunchy on the outside,
right? No, it's not. Don't saturate my bread with the soup. Let me decide when I want to dip and how much I want to dip.
Totally disagree with you, but that's fine.
Done with the bread bowl.
Great. All right.
Oh, my turn. Okay.
Yep. Hit me.
Ready? Classical music.
Oh, yeah. I am a fan, probably more than most. I used to like mock it as just like the old person boring music that like a teacher would play, and I just wanted to fall asleep basically. But having played trumpet all the way through high school and college, and now having like a really deep appreciation for good music, because I think there's a lot of bad music in the world. I really do love classical music. I don't put it on like on a daily basis just as like background music because I love it that much, but I love good classical music that really is like complex and beautiful and meaningful in a significant way. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Up next, Sunday, like the day.
Okay. A lot of ambivalence, a lot of bittersweetness.
This was my suspicion.
Love, yes. And I think a lot of people probably share this. First of all, Lord's Day. Who doesn't love a Lord's Day? In our family, that's a lot about feasting. So our kids get a particular cereal on Lord's Day. They get to have a treat. We all get to have a treat on Lord's Day. We make a big meal and brunch and all the things. But it's also the day of Sunday scaries and like looking back, looking ahead toward the week that's to come and making sure you feel prepared, and then like maybe lamenting all the things you thought you were going to get done on Saturday and you didn't get them done. And so now it's Sunday at 4:00. And should you probably do those? Probably yes. But you also just want to relax. It's just so conflicting. That's the Lord's Day. I'm
really
pretty sure
great.
that's how God conceptualized it. When he gave us the 7th day, he was like, someday Kenna Ray Malay will talk about this day and this is how she'll feel about it. This is what I hope she'll feel. I'm sure that's how he thought of it.
Because the Lord rested on the Sabbath and he
felt anxious
He was stressed about Monday too. Yeah.
Oh okay.
My gosh.
Horseback riding.
Okay, so I have ridden an actual horse one time. I think it was kind of a pony, and my feet literally dragged on the ground, and I embarrassed myself in front of my friends because I tried to make it go where I wanted it to go, and the guy was like, well, just kick it. And I was like, I don't want to kick a horse. I was in college, so like 20, 21, something like that. Gosh. And I don't want to kick the sides. It feels like I'm going to hurt it. And I know it's not true because that horse weighs 3 times more than I do.
If your feet were dragging, you might have.
So I kicked it, and I swear to you, the horse turned around and looked at me like, seriously? Like, what? You have no idea what you're doing back there. So he just like went off course and went and started eating grass. And I was like, this is fine. I'll just hang out here for a little bit. And then I rode 2 donkeys. One with you in Santorini recently, and one on a mission trip at like a horse rehab camp. And both of those were way better experiences. Long way of saying I prefer donkeys to horses every time. I totally get why they rode a donkey to Bethlehem, because a horse would have been a little bit pretentious and would have just wanted to do its own thing because the horse likes to be in charge. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I did not expect that spirited of an answer from you. That was awesome.
Strong opinions about horseback riding because I feel like a horse judged me one time. So, all right, next up, U2, the band.
Okay. So all I think of when I think of U2 is that my freshman year of college, U2 came to Notre Dame's campus to perform a concert, and people lost their minds. I certainly like knew who the band was. Like my dad, I think, listened to U2, but lost their minds, like gave up eating for the rest of that semester to pay for their ticket to go to this concert and like be in the heart. I still don't totally know
in the heart, right? Yes.
Yeah, I don't actually know what
the best equivalent in 2023 is like that was what Taylor Swift was like today.
Sure. But just like crazy. And I don't know if it's because we were like in small town South Bend and like not a lot of good things happened there, but or like, you know, big concerts came there, big artists came there, but it was like what? And then I just like didn't get it. Like I never got into the music. And so then I just kind of like rejected the culture altogether. Although my understanding is that Bono is a philanthropist or something like that. So
is Catholic, was Catholic at some point.
I didn't even know that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, so very, very minimal exposure to U2, mainly just that one concert in the fall of 2021.
And a little bit contrarian, possibly.
Possibly. I may be known for that. Okay. Is this number 3 for you? Number 3.
Yep.
The month of August.
Oh, yeah, I'm a fan. I enjoy August. It's not, let me think. It's probably a top 5 month for sure. It might be top 3. Because let's think about it. So August, so it's still summer, so you still get great weather, especially here in Minnesota. My condolences to you in Texas and Florida in August. But August for us is very nice still.
Lovely.
You get the beginning of football at the end of August. You get the state fair here in Minnesota, and maybe some places around the country have state fairs that time of year too. You have a lot to look forward to, like the school year is kind of ramping up at the end of August and it's fun. But the beginning of August, you still get some like vacations and stuff like that sprinkled in there. Like, yeah, outside of probably December and maybe like April, like whatever month Easter is in, it's probably next or after that. Top 3, top 4, probably month.
Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't even mention that your namesake was born in that month, but
that's true.
cool.
Yes.
We won't tell our son.
And a child.
That
That's
you
right.
overlooked that. Cool. Okay.
All right. Next
Again,
up.
surprising.
You ready?
Okay.
Self-checkouts.
Ooh, you know, I'm a fan. This may come as a surprise to listeners, but I like to be in control. And so
I knew those were the next words coming out of your mouth before you said that.
I enjoy the self-checkout because I work very hard to unload my cart, to load it in a particular order and then to unload it in a particular order. And I always have some kind of something special, unique, right? Like, oh, these things need to go to the office and these things need to come home. These things need to go down into the basement pantry, these things like, and so I like to pack accordingly. It just makes things easier when I get home. Also speed. I value efficiency, and there's no one to get mad at, maybe except for the guy in front of me who's taking too long to get out of the self-checkout lane that I want to be in. But I get to control how, am I easy like Sunday morning, or am I like whipping through here like I'm a woman on a mission? Usually the latter, unless you're the Target dollar spot. But yeah, self-checkout. I'm pro self-checkouts. Yeah.
I also love self-checkouts. And I realized as you're saying that I feel the same way in the line at self-checkout as I do at TSA. Like I pride myself on being an expert at this process.
You're like, I got this.
And so I stand in line and fall in sinful nature. I scan the people in front of me who are going through the self-checkout or security at the airport, and I'll watch them and be like, give me a break, fella. Like, really? You're not putting your phone out of your pocket?
His laptop
really?
in his back
exactly,
pocket.
Right. Or like somebody standing at the front of the self-checkout line and there's a self-checkout register open, but they don't see it. And I'm 5 people back, so I'm not going to shout in the middle of Target, be like, hey, it's open. Anyway.
You don't do that. Your next topic is gin.
Oh, gross. Gross.
Your face was like confused. Like you're like, I dislike it so much. I had actually dumped the word and its meaning out of my brain.
I had to process for a second because I thought you mispronounced Jen, like our friend. I was like, number one,
our old nanny?
I am in favor of Jen. And number two, that's not how you say her name. No, okay, got it. Gin, the drink that tastes like Pine Sol. No, I do not approve. No, thank you. I've had like 3 drinks of like with gin in my life that were not disgusting. And it's because either it was like a drink that was mixed well enough that it didn't taste like gin anymore, which I'm fine with then, or it was like an interesting enough type of gin that it didn't totally taste like just biting into a pine cone, but it just, I couldn't, no.
Thank you for that. I'm not entirely certain what the purpose of that was, but that was really fun. Was it supposed to be that we were supposed to have fun? Because if that was the purpose, then mission accomplished.
That is always my purpose. Yes.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. Okay. Well, you've got us warmed up because it is real late on a weekday night. And, but we are here today to talk about radical acceptance. And you referenced earlier that, when I suggested this topic for this episode, that I do see radical acceptance as this skill, and it is a skill. It needs to be practiced. It needs to be well honed, but it's one of hope. And so I just feel like it's so fitting for this season, both where we're at liturgically and scripturally, of being focused on peace and hope, and living in the reality, this odd reality, right? We're waiting for Jesus to come again, and we're celebrating that he came once in history, but that it is one of hope, and also a time when we gather with people who can sometimes annoy us and sometimes challenge the ways that we are cultivating peace in our world, because our worlds are colliding as we go to holiday gatherings and what have you. So it felt like a really practical thing to talk about today.
Yeah.
So, when I think about it, I think of radical acceptance as a key, like really one of these foundational pieces to freedom and authenticity for an individual. Like when I'm working with clients and I'm listening to them describe what's maybe tripping them up in life, I'm listening for ways that I hear their acceptance of themselves, right? And that's not the same thing as like being willing to let myself remain in sinful habits or to not have goals and aspirations, not at all. But an awareness of like, this is the truth of where I'm at, and I'm being compassionate about it and accepting of it. So, yeah.
Because I remember when you started using that term around me and I was kind of learning what you meant by radical acceptance, I had this experience of like, on one hand, I'm guessing what that means based on connotations about those 2 words about in my own head. And on the other hand, I have no idea what you intend by that term. So can you like just define for us, when you say radical acceptance, what does that look like? What does that mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So this concept of radical acceptance is quite simple, right? I mean, we could be listening to this and thinking like, wow, Kenna, this is not that profound. But I think if we can consider that it has these 3 elements to it, we can see why it can be so freeing and so helpful in our life. So these 3 elements are acknowledge, honor, and accept. So I acknowledge whatever it is that's going on that isn't to my liking. So I acknowledge the fact that this relationship with my sister, for example, isn't where I want it to be. I honor the fact that I don't like this, that this isn't how I would have it. By honoring, I'm really validating myself. I'm giving myself that confirmation that like, yeah, this isn't how we'd write the script, write the story. And then I accept, and also, this is the way it is. I accept that reality. I'm able to, therefore, be more free, be more flexible, and actually maybe consider what are some alternate routes around or through this issue. So when folks come to me as a therapist, there's usually some element of stuckness in their life, right? Like whether it's them individually, maybe there's a vocational question, or there's grief that they feel like they should have moved through already and they aren't. Maybe it's a couple or a family that's stuck in an unhealthy or dissatisfying dynamic among themselves. But there's this stuckness. And what I feel like I observe is people are usually in one of two extremes, or they kind of oscillate between these two extremes. So on the one hand, folks can lean toward being dismissive of this painful reality, this thing that isn't. Let's go back to my sister situation. This is my fictitious sister, by the way. But this relationship that causes me a lot of distress. Maybe there's like open hostility and conflict, let's even say, that I dismiss that, I ignore that, I invalidate it. I pretend it's not bugging me. I pretend it's not that bad. So that's one side of it. That's the cutoff side. Mm-hmm. And then the other side that I witness is people really perseverating, like being enmeshed with the issue so much that they're in their heads about it. And they're thinking about, well, how could it be different? Or how would I respond if she said this? Or how could I, what do I imagine I could do differently this time? Or thinking about the past, even like maybe if I had said this, it would have put us on a different path or a different trajectory. And the bottom line is like, neither of those are real. Neither of those things really let us live with the truth of what is. And we're not going to find any satisfying steps forward if we're not living in the truth of what is. Because the truth is, number one, the thing that really does exist, no matter how much you or someone outside of you tells you that this thing isn't a big deal. For you, it is. Like for you, it is upsetting. So no sense in dismissing it and denying that reality. And then on the other hand, none of us have the power to do anything just through our thoughts, right? Like I can't unthink history by wishing it to be different, by replaying it in my mind. And so we've got to live in reality, which can be a really painful place. So I think this radical acceptance is a tool that helps us to just be, really present to the truth of what's going on in our lives.
So like engaging with reality, living in reality, that kind of 3-step process that you're talking about is all about living in the present moment and being able to be authentic in the way that we live and kind of move forward with that, right? Gotcha. Yeah.
Well, so let me give you some examples of ways that this might show up in my thinking or in my actions or in my relationships even.
Right.
And then maybe you can get a sense of what I mean here. So a thought maybe that could really benefit from radical acceptance are things like, this isn't fair. This shouldn't be happening. This isn't fair. This isn't right. And it's like, okay, I agree. And also, it's happening. Like whatever the thing is, like it's the guy cutting you off, you getting a ticket when there was no sign posted that you shouldn't have parked there. Like whatever the situation is, as small or as big, heaven forbid, like some kind of medical diagnosis, some health crisis, like, in this broken, fallen, imperfect world, no. And kind of resisting, like pushing again, like this can't be happening. This isn't right. Like, it doesn't allow me to go, okay, so what do I want to do next? Like, okay, the ticket is here. I've got the ticket. What do I want to do now? What steps do I want to take next? So that's like a silly example, but that's kind of what I mean about ways that we can think in a way that's contrary to being in reality, being accepting of what is real and what is true.
Like being fixated on the thing that is distressing and letting that affect other situations in my life. Then like it's going to affect my conversation with my wife when I get home, or it's going to affect how present I am to my kids when I'm getting them ready for bed tonight, things like that, because I just think of like the sports metaphor that comes to mind for me is that there's a phrase that coaches will use sometimes about, they'll say, don't let that guy beat you twice in one play. And the idea is like, so if you're a defensive back and you're guarding a wide receiver, and if he runs straight past you, catches a touchdown pass right over your head, it's embarrassing, and he just flat out beats you, right? That's annoying and that's upsetting. What you cannot do is then get down on yourself and fixate on that previous play and then let him beat you immediately on the next play again, right? So like just living in the moment, I can't change the past. So how am I going to deal with this present situation appropriately now? That kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just to back up a minute. So radical acceptance comes out of DBT, which I don't know if we've ever talked about DBT before. Again,
In passing,
I
we
probably
have.
referenced
Yeah,
it, right?
yeah.
So DBT stands for dialectical behavioral therapy. And the dialectic is holding together two seeming contradictions, which maybe we've talked about it before. We as Catholics are all-star pros at this, right?
Masters.
Like,
Yep.
yes, so many things. Like, is that bread or is that Jesus's body and blood, soul and divinity? Yep, all of the above.
Well, technically, it used to be bread, but yes.
Okay. Does it appear as bread? Yep, sure.
There we
Still
go.
looks like bread.
Tastes like it. Yep.
And also, okay. So is Jesus human or is he divine? Yep, he's 100% both. Just all these ways in which it's like, how can that be? Because 100% plus 100% doesn't equal 100%. Yep, it does in this situation. So dialectical behavioral therapy is developed for was developed for those who have difficulty with really intense emotions and ways to help bring together the intellect and the emotion into what they call the wise mind. And so radical acceptance is one of the skills within that body of therapy. And so if we think about it in that context of like, yes. So when that police officer tickets me for parking in a zone that doesn't, to my knowledge, have any signs posted that I can't be parked here, that contradiction of like, I did the right thing and I somehow got a ticket and got a punishment. Like that's the dialectic of like, how do I live in both of these things at once? And how do I not get stuck in order that it continues to, kind of rule over me. So I want to like really walk through steps. And then I actually thought of something you told me recently, Pat, that I wondered if I could put you on the spot and use you as a guinea pig. So take a moment with that and you can get warmed up.
Fun.
Even though you have no idea what I'm about to say. But anyway, that's cool. So, okay. So let's imagine the situation is that I have an older sister who I have difficulty getting along with. And we're going to, be together at a family gathering in a couple weeks. And the story is that we've had some conversations. I've been able to tell her, that I find her a bit condescending in our interactions. Like I feel like she doesn't acknowledge that I am a grown-up, and that I am a full-fledged adult. Like I still get put in the little sister role when we're together, especially with the larger family. And so I've talked to her about it. Like I've used all of my best. Like I didn't use any horsemen and I did a really great job of self-disclosing and putting it on the fence post. But she has yet to, it seems, really integrate my feedback into her behavior and into the way that she treats me. So first step is number one, acknowledge. So I acknowledge that like this stinks. Like this is a bummer that this is the way it is, that like I have gone to the edge of my garden. I have done my very best to like put myself out there and be honest about how it is to be in a relationship. And it doesn't seem to be making a difference. Like I acknowledge that stinks. Secondly, I honor. So I get why I tense up around her. Like I honor the reaction that I have because of this difficulty. I get why it's hard for me to want to like press in and be more vulnerable with her and like share deeper things in my life. I feel like she might weaponize those and, use those to lecture me. So I honor that. And then I accept that I accept that at least for now, that this is the truth of our relationship, that for now we exist on the surface. And there's grief in that for sure. And that's part of the acceptance of like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be when we were little girls. Like I thought we were going to have a different relationship, but I accept it, and it allows me to be grateful for what is. Like it allows me to be like, man, I'm so glad that we can be, generally peaceable for the few days that we're all together at Dad's house. That's the gift of radical acceptance. The other way might be one of like, I don't even go, I don't engage. If I'm there, I give the cold shoulder, I don't interact. The other way could be open hostility, having a fight that we've had 17 times and kind of, what is it? Lather, rinse, repeat, whatever that thing is, like reusing old conflict, like, but this is, it's not 100%, right? It's not my ideal. And also I give myself the freedom. I give myself the flexibility to enjoy what is and to let go of what's not. Okay. So that's my idea. Now for you.
Uh-oh.
I overheard you sharing with someone the other day about something related to work and a situation where you were feeling, I don't exactly know the details, but you were feeling like some task is related to insurance claims, was just like brand new, like first time dipping your toes into these waters. And you were sharing this like moment that you had of being like, okay, like I'm just going to be real. I'm going to be honest about the fact with this insurance guy, customer service guy, of like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know what the issue is, or I don't know how to solve it, or, you know, what have you. So, I'm wondering if we can kind of talk through that, and if you can kind of share with us what that was like for you, because I think there's a lot of radical acceptance in there. And I can help you find it.
Oh, great.
If you're having trouble.
This is going to be radical, said the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, 30-second context. With the Martin Center for Integration that you and I co-founded, that This Whole Life podcast is a part of my job as director of formation and operations is handling insurance billing, which is, shocker, something that the former youth minister did not learn how to do between planning retreats and lock-ins. I did not learn about this whole world. So I've had to learn on the fly for like 18 months now. I'm finally in kind of a flow, but rewind 18 months was not in a flow. And routinely, maybe daily, a situation would come up involving insurance companies that would make me realize why I was always cynical about insurance companies.
Different episode,
and
different
it was
episode.
Entirely justified, I will say. And B, it made me consider the reality that, like, not only am I faced with a problem that I don't know how to solve, I didn't even know enough to know yesterday that this could be a problem that might exist in the world for anyone, especially for myself. So now this problem's been dropped in my lap. I've had to learn what the problem is and why it's a problem in the first place. And now I'm in the unenviable situation of being on the phone with someone trying to ask for help with a problem that I don't understand.
That does sound hard.
That's the context.
and so my understanding, as you were telling this story to someone else the other day, was like, there was a part of you, maybe a large part of you, that wanted to deny how out of your depth you felt, and to play as if you knew what was up. It's a high priority in my life to not be an idiot. Okay.
And to not seem like an idiot to others. Yes. Okay. So I mean, partially prideful and partially just like human nature. I love to seem capable and intelligent and aware of how to fix things in my life. Right. Sure. So yes, that's for sure.
So this like pressed up right up on that hot spot for you.
Yep.
And so this radical acceptance of like, I can acknowledge that I enjoy seeming capable, being competent, coming across as competent and assured, and giving people a sense of security, important when you're in charge, especially.
Yep.
And so that acknowledgement, and then being able to honor that, like, I want to do this job well. I want to learn how to do this so that I can continue to do it, because it will continue to be my job, and I will have to keep doing these kinds of untangling these glorious knots. And so accepting that means getting real with Joe on, whatever, Medica customer support, and saying like, Joe, you got to walk me through this one more time, because this is new language for me, and what have you. But what I love about it is like a place of resisting the reality that you didn't know what was going on yet would have left you further in the dark, right? It wouldn't have moved you toward the goal of being competent.
Yep.
Like it would have kept you in this place of like, okay, I fixed it that one time, but like, I don't know how to do that again. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
right.
understand enough. Like he just told me which buttons to push. Like I was just a puppet and his mouse was moving all over the screen. And so I love that example because I think it's a really concrete, simple example of how radical acceptance gets us closer to what we actually want, which is a more free, authentic, like joyful life. Like that is the point. And that maybe sounds so silly related to an insurance situation, but I think it's true in small ways and in these bigger ones as well.
It's striking to me that maybe radical acceptance is sounding to me all of a sudden like it's related to the virtue of humility a little bit too. That like, especially in my work moment, there was like the kind of classic cultural version of humility, you know, where I had to tell what's his face customer service rep for some insurance company on the phone, like, hey, listen, you're going to have to help me out here. It's my first time I've done this. You might as well be speaking Japanese. I have no idea what you just said. So can you walk me through it? I very frequently felt like Michael Scott from The Office talking to Toby. All right, just tell it to me like I'm 10, you know? And then he explains it. And then Michael Scott's next words are, okay, tell it to me like I'm 5, you know? So I felt like that a lot, which is like humility in the kind of like cliche sense now of like, I am taking my humble pie and I just need to tell you that I don't know what you're talking about, right? But humility in the true virtue sense is all about being related to truth. It's about seeing things clearly, which is exactly what you're talking about with living in reality, right? That radical acceptance is about understanding the situation clearly, seeing it clearly, and being able to relate to it in reality.
I love that. Like, I love the way that you're helping us recognize, first of all, the actual real definition of humility, because first of all, I think that gets misdefined a lot in this world. It's like, oh, I just have to think of myself
I'm not that good.
as a bag of junk. And it's like, no, not at all. But seeing myself in the light of truth. And I love it because you're reminding us that the whole goal is to open up to more creativity, to more problem solving, because the truth is not very often black and white. Like there are few things in this world that are black and white. There's a lot that's like open to our, creative stamp on things, how we individually, uniquely want to address something. Like the Lord gives us a lot of freedom with that. He wants to see our creativity. That's part of how the human person is alive. So I love that connection to humility and what humility actually is.
Yeah. Yeah. So now the part of my brain where the devil's advocate sits.
Oh, my favorite part
has some objections. Yes. Okay. So you can try to handle these objections, all right, in your best therapist self, all right? Objection number 1, radical acceptance at times over the course of the past few months, years, whatever it's been for me, has sounded like, you know what? My least favorite phrase of the 21st century, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know what? It's the way it's going to be. Like, I don't love the way I eat. I don't love the way this friendship is going. I don't love my relationship with my parents. I'm not happy with this one relationship with a child. I don't like my job, but you know what? Radical acceptance. It is what it is. Yeah. I'm going to take it. It's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I love that. So radical acceptance is not giving up. It is not complacency. It is not accepting the status quo when that status quo does not give way to life and flourishing. So again, I've been really, really consistent about saying the gift of radical acceptance is that it opens us up to creativity and to flexibility, right? Those are dynamic ideas. Those are not stagnant, sitting there like a box of rocks kinds of ideas. Like radical acceptance, we know that it's being used well. We know that it's being used appropriately when what it does is opens the doors to new possibilities and new ways of growing and going from a place of stuckness. So if I am stuck, that is an opportunity to apply radical acceptance. If I am stuck in a job where I feel undignified, maltreated, and disrespected, like that is the opportunity to use radical acceptance to go, okay, what can maybe I can't just quit maybe I can't just flip a table and throw a bunch of obscenities and walk out. Like that's not what I'm going to do. I can accept that. What can I do? Okay, well, I do have to stay and continue to work here while also putting out resumes or, having informational interviews outside of work hours, like whatever that is. But I often can't get there to those other ideas if I'm in a place of stuckness. So no, Mythbuster, we are not here to just accept complacency. I will never, ever settle for that.
So ironically, radical acceptance is a way of actually moving forward in a more like free and authentic and creative fashion than just like resting on my laurels and just accepting things the way they are. Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
And even if that's just emotionally, right? Like it isn't always in a physical way. Like we were talking about with a relationship earlier, like sometimes it's just emotionally I move forward. I'm no longer stuck on that resentment or that grudge, or, kind of perseverating on that old fight, or that $10 that my brother owes me, like, whatever, like I can emotionally move on as well. It's not always an action. I should be clear.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. Objection number 2.
Okay.
Radical acceptance might sound like it's saying, I have this like deeply broken, sinful habit in my life, and I accept it. It's there. I radically accept. I honor it even,
Yeah.
and then I accept it. Or this person that I am in a family with, or that I love and is a good friend of mine, they are in a habit of addiction or ingrained sin, and I'm just going to accept that. It's totally fine if they want to live that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yeah. These are good ones. I don't know who you were consulting before this episode, but they really gave you some good ones.
You didn't hear? It's the devil.
That's right. He sent you. Okay. So really, really good. No, radical acceptance is not about condoning actions that are wrong or unhealthy, dangerous, even hurtful to others, or or to ourselves. And it's not about approving. So what it is, though, is perhaps, so to go back to your example of maybe a family member who is really entrenched in an addiction, what radical acceptance allows me to do is to go, when am I at the end of my fence, right? When have I hit my fence post and I have exhausted all of the options that are appropriate for my role as mom, my role as daughter, my role is, whatever I am in relation to the person with the addiction. And radical acceptance is going, okay, like I accept that I am out of tricks in my bag. And of course, as a Christian, I'm called to love them. We could say a whole lot of things about what that means in behavior and in fact, but my disposition is to continue to love them, to continue to will their good. And I accept that I may be out of possibilities for how I can affect change in their life, open their eyes, change their behavior, all those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. But it's not the same as condoning and approving. Absolutely not.
Gotcha. So radical rejection of sin, radical acceptance of my experience of the sin, or the person who is committing the sin, even if that person is me, that I have to accept myself as a person while simultaneously rejecting the sin that I'm guilty of, that kind of a thing.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of, folks that I've walked with that have done, for a whole lot of reasons, have done things that they never in their wildest nightmares would have imagined that they would do, that they've hurt people that they love and they care about. Have made decisions that they're like, what was I thinking? And to radically accept, for a whole host of reasons, those were the choices I made. That was the path that I was on. And their road to healing, with the Lord, with themselves, even in the relationship, the trust again of themselves, certainly with others outside of themselves, family and friends. That first step is this radical acceptance of, this is the truth of who I am. This is the truth of, the decision that I made. And I can accept that for all that means. It is a skill that needs to be practiced, because you can't just put it on and walk out with it right away. It needs to be practiced. You need to take time. I would say journaling with it, part of our challenge by choice. I would also really encourage, there's great resources out there, podcasts, articles. We'll link some things in the show notes, books about radical acceptance as part of DBT, even just Googling it, honestly, and just reading up or watching a few videos on it. You got to be careful about your sources, but that can be helpful just to get a sense of how to apply this.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, you already teased our challenge by choice.
Okay.
Why don't we give the whole thing?
All right. So
keep the people waiting.
So in our challenge by choice, you guys, I'm so sorry. I have a cold and it's just really something special. Okay. So challenge by choice. Consider a situation that is upsetting to you. Maybe a relationship that's not in an ideal place, from your perspective, or just a circumstance that you find yourself in that you just are not pleased with. So come up with that situation. And then I would really encourage that this be done in a journal. I think it really benefits from being written by hand, but writing your responses to the 3 aspects of radical acceptance, which again are acknowledge, honor, and accept. And just spending some time thinking about what would each of those 3 components need to involve related to my particular situation, and then see what creative new ideas or newfound motivation to act comes next. Whether it's forgiveness, which is an act, whether it's just loosening the grip on resentment, even that would be a really huge act. Whether it is taking some kind of action and moving forward. Action can even be pulling back, maybe a recognition of whoa, I was over functioning. I was really overstepping into someone else's garden, and I'm going to pull back. That can also come out of radical acceptance and being aware of where our limits are. So that is our challenge by choice for this episode.
Love it. Awesome. All right. I am excited to acknowledge, honor, and accept you and all of the circumstances in my life.
Am I someone you need to radically accept?
Sometimes, yeah.
I guess.
Not all the time.
That's true.
No, you're
That's
easy
true.
to accept most of the time.
Not all the time. Not all the time. Well, would you please pray for us and pray for our hearts so they might be more flexible?
Happily.
Okay.
Yes. Let us pray. Lord Jesus, we thank you for your love, for your grace, for your work in our lives. Lord, you are good. You are our light and our life, and you are the reason that we have a desire for the good things that you place in front of us, that you set our hearts on, that you place desires in us for the good things in our life. And Lord, you also know that in this fallen world, there are so many things, so many situations that are imperfect and sometimes even desperately broken and painful. And Lord, you know the pain in us that comes from those situations. So we ask for your blessing for each of us in those moments where we experience tension and anxiety and uncertainty and fear. Lord, help us to live in reality. Help us to embrace humility. And we pray for an increase in the virtue of humility as well, so that we can live in truth and that we can follow you in truth in the way that you're calling us forward to radical love, to radical acceptance, and to radical trust in you. We ask all this, Jesus, in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
That's a wrap.
Well, that was a radical episode.
Oh my gosh, we need to get you out of the dad joke mode.
Disagree. It's going to be great.
New topic, guys, next time, I promise.
Thank you for listening to This Whole Life, friends. Please continue to send us great feedback, not just about the episodes that we just wrapped up in 34, 35, but about radical acceptance and everything else. Let us know what topics you want to hear about, questions you have, thoughts about people that we should talk to and invite on the show for great conversations. You can find us online at thiswholelifepodcast.com. and on Instagram and Facebook at This Whole Life Podcast. And please share this episode with a friend that you radically accept, or anyone else that you love and care about and you think could benefit from this kind of a conversation. God bless you, friends. We will see you next time.
God bless you.
You're not alone, you're not alone.
This Whole Life is a production of the Martin Center for Integration. Visit us online at thiswholelifepodcast.com.
You're not alone, you're not alone, you're not alone.
Grabando.
Okay, Duolingo, are you ready?